The protection of life, whether in Iran or elsewhere, is a matter of moral obligation for all people. Whilst abductions, false charges, show trials, denial of access to legal representation and lifelong sentences, including death penalties, are all trumped-up charges, are nothing new in Iran since the '79 revolution. The ferocity and scale of what is happening in Iran right now is above and beyond what any of us have witnessed or experienced over the last almost 44 years. On display in this room, appearing today, and the people behind me, is only a small taste of what has formed internationally. A global solidarity of the Iranian diaspora, with some 4 to 6 million Iranian, hyphenated Iranians, globally, and about 80,000 in Australia and growing. It's emerged in response to the brutality and viciousness of the Iranian regime in its latest episode, which indicates not only a considerable progress in the thinking of the Iranian people, but also their appreciation and respect for the unique makeup of the Iranian society. The main focus on equality of women and men as one of the most pressing challenges facing Iran is at the forefront of people's mind. But their aim also includes the need for unity in the diversity of cultures, peoples, traditions, and religions that constitute Iranian society as a whole. For the people of Iran, the path ahead is long and hard. However, Iran is a country rich in history, and the Iranian diaspora, many of whom escaped one form of discrimination or persecution at the hands of the current regime in Iran, represent a brain drain from the country and are a community rich not only in material means, but also in culture, spirituality, and love for the fellow beings. The global diaspora is made up of some of the most renowned scientists, mathematicians, doctors, surgeons, lawyers, jurists and advocates for human rights, engineers, bankers, artists, poets, and the rest. A group that is, for the first time in many years, globally united in its resolve to defend the human rights of the people in Iran and help secure the safety, security, and freedom. Alas, we are a group which has faced many challenges, oppression and tyranny, but have always persevered and somehow risen like the phoenix, or as referred to in the Persian literature as the sea morgue. This time will be no different, with or without the help of anybody else. However, with meaningful and tangible support of the bastions of justice and human rights, like the members of this committee, Australia collectively can assist to bring down the cost to human life and ultimately lessen the loss of innocent blood and contain it. And to wrap up, the message is loud and clear. The people in Iran need help and need help urgently. Whilst ultimately light will conquer darkness, at the end when the dust settles, Iranians will remember all those who helped, and I suspect all those who did not.
Thank you, Mr. Maghami.
My name is Sara Rafiee. As I mentioned, Mr. Maghami and I are appearing for and on behalf of United Action for Iran. Given the fact that UAI is not a standalone entity and is a cooperative of approximately 19 Iranian Australian community organisations and approximately 700 individuals, I thought I should make that clear. All views expressed today are my own and not in my professional capacity or my day job. The UAI submission sets out 6 proposed actions that the Australian government could and should take in dealing with the situation in Iran. I will happily address some of those and Mr. Maghami the rest. From the outset, it is important to note what we are not asking for. We're not asking for any military intervention, and we're not asking for broad-based economic sanctions for reasons explained in the submission. By way of a very short background, I'm an Iranian Australian who was born in Iran and migrated here with my family when I was 15. Currently, the internet is restricted and information is disseminated on a piecemeal basis. Despite this, through bravery of Iranians, we are seeing images get out via mobile phone networks where possible and usually days late. These videos come out at a very high price. On 22 September, a young woman was shot by the regime forces when she was recording gunfire crackdown on protesters. The images that come out of Iran show unlawful and unjustified use of firearms, including live ammunition, causing death and serious injuries, including blindness and paralysis. The number of protesters injured in this way is currently unknown due to absence of free press. The regime has imposed pressure and punishment on Iranian doctors simply for providing medical care to injured protesters, including arrest and arbitrary detention. Since 16 September, mass protests are widespread across the country. The rallying cause is summarised in 3 words: women, life, freedom. The regime continues to suppress and violate the human rights of its citizens, especially women and girls, as it has for 43 years. For the past 43 years, systematic abuse has occurred and no one has been spared. Human rights advocates, labour rights activists, LGBTQI+ activists, lawyers, environmentalists, journalists, bloggers, filmmakers, and especially ethnic and religious minorities. The Iranian regime is a gender apartheid regime with women bearing the brunt. There is discrimination in all walks of life, including divorce, custody rights, work, travel, inheritance. Women cannot be appointed as judges of high courts, enter sporting events, leave the country without permission of husband or their father. Even the simple act of riding a bicycle, they are prohibited from under Iranian law. In 2019, an Iranian female set herself on fire as a show of protest after being handed a prison sentence for trying to enter a soccer stadium. There are many, many, many more examples, but plain and simple, what has been happening in Iran over the past 43 years is the very definition of gender apartheid. In seeking to downplay the atrocities of the regime against its own people, it labels peaceful protesters as violent rioters, as if that excuses the extrajudicial killings on the streets of Iran and the denial of the most basic rights to Iranians by the regime. The figures have already been covered by Amnesty earlier today, so I will not repeat them, except to say that approximately 16,000 people have been arrested and are in limbo, not knowing whether they'll get a trumped-up charge that carries the death penalty. The regime regularly engages in acts of terrorism, including through its cyber armies, with Australia a victim, something that has been confirmed by our very own security agencies here in Australia only 2 months ago. So none of this is far from home. We must treat the Iranian regime the same way we treated apartheid South Africa. We need to diplomatically isolate and shame it. Diplomatic action is necessary to fulfil Australia's human rights policy objectives and ensure the safety of Australians by firmly shutting Australia out from serving a safe haven to members and supporters of the Iranian regime, as well as other perpetrators of human rights abuses and atrocities in Iran. Thank you.
Thank you.